a lot of this, you rightly point out, India's a friend of ours as well. I mean, as other nations in this region are, but Donald Trump had recently said to India, look, you've got to stop buying oil from Russia. But India gets it very cheaply, and Narendra Modi's primary job is to look after his own people, right? So if they're all together, and you point out it's a very much an anti-Western sentiment there in Beijing this week, as there often is. But what happens? What comes out of this? Is there a stronger pushback against the United States, the West, etc.? What could we expect in the West?
Yeah, look, this could take many forms, the product of this conference. Certainly previous ones have not issued a joint statement supporting Russia and Ukraine. Is that now a possibility? Because North Korea is going, Kim Jong Un, and he's going to literally be meeting face to face with, President Xi of China and with President Putin of Russia. And we know how reliant Russia has been on North Korea for drones, technology, and actual troops in its war. So we may see some impact on the Ukrainian front line or in that Ukrainian area of operations. We're also seeing these closer ties with India and China. That's the most concerning part. They've already announced that they're going to step up some trade, that China no longer sees threat coming from India so much as it's seeing development opportunities. The closer those two get, the worse it is for Australia particularly, but all of us in the Western alliances. Because if there's one country in the region that China worries about, it's India. Because they have a 3,800 kilometre shared border. They've been in a military standoff since a 2020 clash. Now they've patched that up and they have a new border patrol agreement and everything's progressing forward. None of that is good news for the Trump administration or the rest of the West.
You know, it's interesting too, Michael. India for a long time has wanted to get on the UN Security Council, right? The 5 permanent members. It wants to be the 6th permanent member. China doesn't want that though, does it? Because it'll lose some of its influence.
Well, that may change. That's a big call, but we are seeing incremental, progress in their relationship. China hasn't wanted them on the permanent members of the Security Council because they're combatants. Yeah. They're adversaries, militarily and economically. As I said, they have border clashes going back since the 1950s. Really bad one where 20 soldiers died in hand-to-hand fighting 5 years ago. Well, all of that's been wiped away. So would China oppose them as much now? One wonders, although they wouldn't want to dilute the power of the 5.
Yeah, I mean, Germany and Japan, they all want to become that 6th member as well. So whether that changes or not, it's probably unlikely. But you've got this big military parade that's going to be taking place at Tiananmen Square on Wednesday. So it'll cap off the week in spectacular fashion, won't it? Bob Carr says he's going. The former Labor Foreign Minister, Daniel Andrews, the former Victorian Premier, he's been invited. Whether he goes or not, as I mentioned, it remains to be seen. But what sort of a display will be there? I don't think anyone from our Australian current government is going.
No, I don't believe so. But also the UN Secretary-General has signalled that he may attend. Look, we all have to talk to our enemies and we all need to keep the flow of information passing back and forth. But expect this to be a cracker of an event. 20,000 troops and others have been rehearsing for weeks. This will be very reminiscent of Red Square during the Soviet era. So this is very much filled with nationalist fervour, and it's part of rallying common Chinese citizens to the government's nationalist cause. We're seeing it in Chinese cinema right now. The most popular movies across the board are, celebrating the events of World War II.
Yeah, China's box office. If you go and look at the all-time films, I mean, there's Chinese films in there right up the top that most people outside of China have never even heard of.
Well, they're not designed for people outside of China, are they? I mean, we're now seeing little kids mesmerised by these tales of World War II, both the horrors that the rest of the world doesn't acknowledge and the heroes that emerged in China itself. So this is their cinema is a very nationally galvanising industry and form of propaganda, entertainment, one could argue.
Yeah, with an eye on Taiwan, it seems, as the result of all of this. Thank you, Michael. We will leave it there. Got to go.